was about like 3 years ago when I got into art school. For the first time in like years, it felt like I was finally at a place where I like belonged and felt accepted, and that I really saw like a more bright future. And it's crazy because I'm graduating this year, so it's like a full circle thing, you know? Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Right Feeling podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by my dance teacher, Alina Jacobs, to talk about the subject, how to stop comparing yourself and build self-trust. A little background on Alina. She works as a dance pedagogue specialized in improvisation, but also as a gyrotonic and gyrokinesis trainer. She is also a contemporary dancer and choreographer. She originally is from Germany and studied dance education at Codarts here in the Netherlands. This recording was made while she was a trainer and teacher affiliated with Movement Retraining Center, where I also started taking her modern dance classes. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll check back in with you at the very end. Welcome to the podcast, Alina.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. The reason why I wanted to invite you onto this podcast was because there were a couple of things while you were teaching in dance that I remembered, and I found it so reassuring when you said in the very first class, don't compare yourself to anyone else, just base your progress off of how you started and how you ended in the class. I think that's also just a philosophy in general to live by. So how do you not compare yourself to other people? How did you get to that point? Do you still struggle with comparing yourself sometimes?
I think comparing is something that happens daily and that is very human. I think it's something normal, but it's with like everything. A little bit is good. If it's too much, mostly it's not good anymore. For myself, I was also in dance education, so I had 4 years of studying together with a group where every day there's training, every day you're in front of a mirror, every day dance is about you as a person, as an artist. It's very personal, so also it is very challenging, and there it depends on the character and the personality, how much you can use comparison as something productive to learn, because you can learn a lot through it also, and how much it can stand in your way for your own process actually. And during my studies, like there was a long time where I could develop on a lot of levels, and then I had the feeling I was stuck physically, that I could not really come to the next level, but I had in a way underneath the feeling there's still some potential which I did not discover. But because not yet having had the tools, then there was starting for me this comparing to others, but like seeing why can they do it? Why can I not do it with my body? Is it training that is missing? What is missing? So there I started to question. And that led me to start training with Robert Slatke at Movement Retraining Center. He and also the co-owner of this space, Francesca Bracelli, both in my process mentioned once this idea of, okay, comparing yourself with your own process. And for me was a important statement to be aware, to see, okay, what have I achieved within my own training, and also to be clear with my results, because it's very easy to see the things that are not working, but to realize what is actually working and where you improved maybe is sometimes more difficult to see. Comparison is all good and healthy when it's not specifically connected with judgment. Because when we start to judge, we are more in good or bad. And then it can become as this toxic way.
It's interesting you say that. It's what meaning you attach to comparison. Because if you compare yourself very neutrally and constructively, it really is more about, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I become better or improve myself, right? But when you start attributing I'm not as good as this person, or like, oh, I'm better than this person, even sometimes to kind of toot your own ego,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
You start to fall into that dynamic because even when you do think of you being better than somebody else, you ultimately will still be worse, quote unquote, than somebody else.
Yeah.
And you start putting yourself in that box, and it's no longer about self-improvement for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking if you have any, I guess, advice on that. Because as a teacher, of course, this is in dance. But,
yeah. I mean, the thing
know.
is, like, for me, for example, also the modern dance class that I then teach regular, the approach of my modern dance class is like, yes, the first part is also, of course, the physical part, the training and so on. It is about bringing people further in life, supporting the journey in life, because it is always a process to come to a result. And in a process, we meet our restrictions, we meet some challenges, and I use these moments when we come to our restrictions, or when there is a struggling, even if it's just about a physical thing, about a step, I try always to bring in aspects that are possible, to refer them to life, or to the way how you approach your own processes outside dance. So I think that is, first of all, a little bit for the context. And then I think in general, first of all, we need to become aware of that we compare ourselves so much. In case we do, it depends on the person, but only if we are aware of something, we can to start change something. And then I think it is, when we approach it like this, it is a chance to understand our insecurities and to see until which point we need to accept them and which part is something we can work on. Because when we compare, it's mostly about something we are insecure about.
Yeah.
So that's why then we can see, okay, why am I insecure about it? What do I see in this other person, what I don't have? And then, for example, if it's now referring to the dance, something physical, we have a certain body structure. We have a certain things that are the way we are born. We cannot change. But there are also physical things that you can develop, mostly even more than we think, when we have a good guidance of a good trainer. Then it's something we can change because we can own it. But the things that we cannot change, we can only accept, because otherwise life is very hard.
And I think that's maybe what a lot of people struggle with. Where is the line of acceptance?
And I think there is not really like one way to learn that, but like to be aware, I think that's something that a lot of people say. I think it's something I heard somewhere, because I don't think that it's my own words. You only have this one body and this one life. So when you every day are making your life hard through like not accepting the things that you cannot change, why living this life? In a way. So I think it is really something also to confront yourself and to like put yourself in a way in front of a mirror and to say like, hey, stop, what am I doing with myself? Like, is it worth it? Or can I start changing it? And I think for some people, just being aware of it, listen to it, thinking about it, exchanging with a friend, and maybe reading about it can already like help to change it step by step. And others maybe need other support through physical education or therapy or whatever, because that's again what I said, it's the range. A little bit is okay. A lot is maybe too much. And then it is, do I have the skills myself to change it, or do I need support to change it?
You know, the phrase that's popping up in my mind as you're talking about being aware of your comparisons, I was like, it's kind of just conscious comparisons. Because oftentimes it is that little voice in your head, you know, that's, you're not vocalizing it out loud, but I'm sure all the listeners to this podcast, you probably recognize those very thoughts that we're talking about, you know, or like alluding to. And I think you're right. Once you are a little bit more aware of it, that's when you should probably sit down and ask yourself, okay, what am I insecure about? Because I know I also have insecurities, but it's taken me a very long time. I've been working on it maybe the last 2 years to come to accept those things that are insecure, but actually for other people, they're very normal things. But it's also your own perception of yourself.
Or other people even appreciate it.
Exactly. Yeah. But until you actually confront yourself about these things, you will just go through comparisons in a sometimes very toxic way, because you will start attributing that meaning of good or bad, and you won't learn from them. I'm trying to think, when was the last time I compared myself? It was actually with a friend. I'm just thinking now, like I have this hugely successful friend and I'm so proud of her, so she's doing such amazing things. But there's a part of me that's also jealous, like, I wish I was also that successful. I feel like she's very strong in her opinions and she's able to vocalize it in a very professional manner. And that's not something I've been able to do. I've been learning to do that, but I have a much more soft approach very often. And now I'm trying to process in real time. Like, okay, that's a comparison. And so what is that telling me about my own insecurity? And how can I learn from that?
And also asking, I think that is also something I think in this, if you would take the time to sit down for it, is also to see, is that comparison that I make, is that actually true? Because very often we have our own, everybody has his own truth, his own reality, and it's mostly not objective. So that sometimes help to ask friends or people that you only know a little bit about the things that you're doubting about or insecure about, to ask other people how they perceive you in it. Because then you can check for yourself, is your own reality the reality also from others? And if you see there are different perceptions, you can also maybe change your own perception. Like then, for example, now when you tell me about your comparison, like then I see you as a person. I mean, I experienced you in my dance class. I experienced you approached me for the podcast. I met you before in the birthday. And I experienced you as somebody like very strong and direct and clear and very nice verbalizing everything. And like, so actually like what you now compare, like I would tell about you also. So it is also something, okay, what is also to question is what I make up as a comparison. Because also I think maybe if we compare something, sometimes it's also something we maybe already have by ourselves, but we wish to have it even more maybe. Or not always maybe. But as soon there's something, I think, very similar, there's the possibility to compare. As more things are similar, as more base I think there is to compare. So I think it's also to then, and that is again sitting down and analyzing what is actually true, like then what it is, what makes you experience your friend as that clear and strong. Is it how she structured everything? Is it because she achieves a lot of, I don't know, awards? And then what do you have on the same level? Like just fact-wise.
I know you meant it as a rhetorical question, but the answer already came. And the answer for me is actually recognition. And I'm vocalizing this out loud because I'm sure a lot of people also struggle with this. Like when they're comparing themselves, it's because someone else maybe was recognized for this or that skill or just being who they are. And in our society, we are pushed to do X or Y oftentimes because of recognition or the way you were raised. Not everybody was raised this way, but a lot of people like myself were raised in a way where you were rewarded for good things, good grades or something like that. And so it's almost been trained in your mind. And when you don't get that kind of recognition, or when you compare to some, and it's not that I always want recognition, and that's not what I am striving for in life. But I think the comparison, I can already see it because I can see both of us doing also very similar things. But she's much more successful at it than I have been. And what is success then? You know, what perception am I measuring this by? It's not my own. It is what I think society thinks of. And that, I think that's why, coming back to what you were saying of checking in with the reality of the situation, talking to other friends about it, like sharing, yes, Betty, sharing these insecurities and your comparisons that are on your mind, I think can also help either make you realize why are you actually comparing this thing that maybe you don't even need to really compare, or make you realize, okay, is that what I want? Because now saying it out loud, for me, it seems actually silly, because that's not even a value that I really have.
No.
But it's because it's been trained into me that just my automatic response to seeing someone that's like so successful, that's that kind of toxic comparison. That's just, if you don't check it and if you don't stop to reflect on it, it seems to make sense in your mind, but it actually doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I have a little bit a similar experience, or in that sense, like when I graduated, my wish first was to have as much as possible experience on all parts of dance. So I started going towards dancing as performing as a dancer, to create my own productions, to also collaborate with other people, be part of different projects, plus starting to build up actually also the teaching and the gyrotonic and the gyrokinesis.
Yeah.
So a lot.
Yeah.
And I had kind of this ambition to kind of get out of everything what I do the best. And then I also, at a certain moment, I also realized that this also has to do with this kind of, wish for recognition. Because what you say, society for me was more the circle of the dance scene, where then there is like, if you not have had performed, you are not maybe seen as professional dancer, or which is also true in a way. And then at a certain moment, because I'm somebody, I have a lot of energy. I'm very organized. So it worked out in a certain way to keep everything up and to progress in everything, but not fully, that I'm really fully then also content and happy with the development of every part of it. And then at a certain moment, I also realized it also has to do with the recognition. And then I started to question, what is what I really want for myself, for my own progress? And what it is, what I think I need to achieve or do. And then that also gave me the opportunity to also step by step let things go, organize differently, or give myself the time and the space to say, now I focus on this. And maybe in 10 years, there comes again more the aspect of making the productions, because you cannot do everything at the same time. And that changed also then, more and more, where I say now I focus on the teaching.
Yeah.
And then what there was like, yes, it is not the recognition, the outside recognition that I maybe at the moment receive or get from like, she was in that dance production, or she did that production, or whatever. But what is at the moment much more important is for me all the processes, all the results that I achieve with my clients or the people that join my group classes. It's not a recognition, but it is like the confirmation of, this is what I would like to do. So I don't need the recognition. I don't need to be visible in that sense, because I do the work for the people and not to be seen.
Yeah.
And of course, through that, I am seen. I am seen from the people I work with, because they appreciate the work. And then it's something also what you want for life, because I think for us as human beings, the social connection, the community is something very important and is where we can start or where we can be happy. And because life goes always up and down and we always have struggles and this will never change.
Yeah.
But for myself was also realizing, okay, I also would want to have my life also with the social aspect, the community, to have spent time with friends, to have time with family. And if I only put my focus on achieving in all these aspects the best, I don't have time, I don't have energy for what is actually also very important in life for me is the social aspect and the connecting with people that are close to me. And I think to be clear in what is important for yourself, and then I think it doesn't matter what other people do and achieve, because when you know this is important for myself and this is something what makes me happy, or this is what let me feel I own something, I don't know, have passion for something or whatever, then the comparison cannot be toxic anymore because you know where your focus is.
Yeah.
Within everything, I think what is for me important, and I'm not sure if that is something you can learn. I think it's something also I got from my parents in a way. It's like I always in my whole life had like this trust that everything develops the way it will needs to develop. So also that when I'm with something not fully happy, or if I have the feeling I'm still searching, or then I have the trust needs to be like this at this moment, and I will come again to maybe another phase. So there I sometimes don't feel the need to push through when I don't, like, I need to feel always trust for things. And if I don't feel the trust for it, then it does not make sense for me to, like, and this is something which is for me very, like, is intuition. So I can also not really explain what I mean with it. But I always had this, okay, trust that the things come the way they need to come, and I will make from it what I can do from it, and that is good. And
that's also a lot of self-trust though.
Probably
because trusting yourself to adapt whenever the time shows up for you to adapt.
Exactly.
And maybe because now I'm just thinking about like my personal experience, and I think I've lost a lot of that trust. I think I've experienced a few things in the last year where it was like the defeating feeling that settles in, even though, you know, I actually, on my refrigerator, I have a little postcard.
Nice.
Okay, this is going to make sense in a little bit. But a few years ago, after like my breakup, and it was during COVID, and I remember I wanted to take a trip for myself just to reflect on where I want to be, and also just feel that trust in myself again. And I remember that day I climbed up a mountain around Chamonix, and it was so easy for me. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, it's so easy, but I just mean I was so surprised because I brought myself there. And then I wrote that postcard that day, like, Jane, look what you did. You brought yourself there. You can make things happen. You can take yourself where you need to go. And I find that, again, that's a lesson that I'm constantly learning, but it's almost as if I haven't internalized that trust fully. But when I see you sitting here before me and you're explaining these things, and even in our dance classes, you just have this, it feels like you're just one with yourself, and you fully trust yourself.
I mean, it's nice to hear. I think it has something to do with my work also, because I was always busy with being in the body. Now also in the work that I do with clients, it is to understand your body, and your body is something very concrete. So if you feel you stand stable, you trust. If you feel you can do something physically, you trust, and your body is the first thing. And when you can trust in your body, and that's my work, in a way, or that's one part of the work, I bring people, whether, okay, also when there's really physical issues, for example, when there's back issues or frozen shoulder or other aspects. Yes, it is first recovering from the injury, but it is then again getting back the trust in your own body. And when you have the trust in your own body, you also start to get the trust in your own skills, or the trust in that you can achieve certain things. So I think that's something, and because this is what I do the whole time for myself, but also with every person that I'm working with, I think it is something that is like, it is something in me. So I cannot, what you say, it seems like you are one, like it's nothing that I can take out. So, and I think it's something that I appreciate a lot about my work, is that body is concrete, body is experience. And if what you tell about climbing up the mountain is a physical experience you achieved, you felt, I was capable to walk that way, which was probably longer time, which was probably high, and to also, but not only walking up the mountain, but also taking the decision, I take the time off, I organize this travel, I organize that journey. It's a choice to step out of your life and to do that. And to choose this specific mountain, like all these steps that come already before, which you did you did the preparation, then you achieved it physically, and then you even realized for yourself, hey, that was a specific moment, I write myself a postcard. So it is something very concrete you can refer back to, and that's something which is like for my life more easy, because the body is physical and it is always concrete. If you're not in the physical world as your job and you're more behind the laptop working, it is more difficult, I guess, to get that feeling of trusting yourself, because you can start to trust your skills, but if you don't trust your body, I think there are still some insecurities then. So,
and you are training it every day for yourself, because it's also in the work that you do as well.
Exactly.
Well, then how should I train every day? Trust,
It doesn't need to be every day.
That's true. But I hope that it's not just one summer that I go.
No, but I mean, for example, that is also something, like when I have people with injuries, it's okay coming 2 or 3 times per week. But if it's a person that is healthy, comes 1 time per week. And at a certain moment, maybe even 1 time per week is not necessary anymore. And it comes more to maintenance. But like with 1 time per week coming, for example, for training, these processes start to happen, and people, my clients, are more empowered, are starting to change how they walk on the street and so on, and starting to trust in the body. And so it is always what life makes possible.
But maybe it's also about choosing how to show up for yourself, right? So for me, at least, signing up for your class is one way for me to show up for myself, because it's funny, this like misalignment between your body and your mind, right? I'm just going to bring up this example about dance. It used to be like this, where, there's a dance floor, no one's dancing yet, but your body's really feeling the music, but your mind is insecure and it doesn't want to be the first one on the floor and making those moves, because then people will watch you. But now that I've been taking these classes and I'm trying to connect to myself more and building that trust between my mind and my body, I just go out on the dance floor.
Nice. I want to see that.
And because my body wants it, and I think that sometimes you yourself are your own barrier, and it comes back again to that whole comparison aspect of things. Actually, just coming full circle, it feels like even comparison, again, it's trusting yourself and trusting where your boundaries are and how you want to improve and where those limitations are. It only comes if you know yourself and you trust yourself. Well, I wasn't expecting to come to that full circle.
Me neither. It's a nice circle. I like it.
I do. Before we wrap up, though, there's one more point that I wanted to explore with you, because another point, it wasn't in the first class we had. Excuse me, Albert. But I think it was maybe the 4th or 5th class. And, you know, a lot of the students are sometimes very shy and no one wants to go into the front, and everyone kind of wants to make themselves a bit small so they're not invading somebody else's space. And I remember, because I tend to do that, and I remember what you said. You looked at me and you're like, take up space. It's fine. You're not, there's enough space for everybody. And again, that struck me as well. Because I have that tendency to make myself small so that other people can take up space. And I don't know, this is probably more cultural. This is maybe also just societal trainings that you go through, that you internalize subconsciously. And I know this is something other people struggle with. And so when you said that to me, it was like, wow, that's true. Why do I think that me taking up space would mean that someone else can't take up space? You know, this world is big enough for people to create their own space. And after that class, it was just kind of this triggering point of consciousness for me, where it was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I mean, I guess this still comes back to the element of trust with yourself. But when you said that, I just remember this realization, and I was wondering, how did you get to that point as well? You know, I mean, I'm sure this still goes back to all of your training and all of your work as well.
I don't specifically know. I think it's more an observation of like, especially in group classes, because when you're I work a lot also individually, and then me as trainer, I'm with my full attention on this one person, and then this person also knows it can take all the space because I am there for this person. But I can of course observe when the person is then with other people in transitions, like going somewhere else or whatever. I can see how people take their space or not take their space. And in group classes is more visible, like if people take their space or not. Just purely really on the physical level first, like when I say, okay, move all around the space, and then half of the studio is empty and everybody is like in a small cuddle somewhere, already gives me a lot of information.
But you see, this is something that a lot of people experience as well, and it's a bit sad. I don't know if it's like a societal thing where we teach others that, oh, if you take up space, it's rude. Or
I think it's the opposite, because I mean, we can take space in different ways. We can taking space has to do, I think, also with being visible, or at least perceiving or thinking, if I take space, I'm visible also. And we can take space through our body, the physicality. We can take space through our voice. When I'm very, very loud, I take space from other people. We can take space through skills, where we can be visible when we do, for example, in dance, when there's somebody like doing it very, very well, it draws a certain attention, for example. So there's, I think, several ways or layers how to take space. But for me, taking space, and I think that's something, maybe then this is something to switch the mindset also. When you take space, you also give something. It is also a sharing, because when you dare to step somewhere and you give yourself, you become visible, and with that you also give something to the people around you. That can be in a very positive way, that can be in a neutral way, it can also be in a negative or disturbing way, for sure. But to take space is something to be part of the community in a way. So if you don't take your space, you also don't give. You hold everything for yourself. If you take space, you are also in giving, but also you have more surrounding. Now people cannot see that I'm with my hands all over the place to show that you also can receive more. So I think it has also something to do with giving and receiving, and not seeing it as something negative, taking the space, but as something that is actually the possibility to connect.
Yeah.
Because you can inspire in for example, in dance class, if somebody stares now from this image of everybody is in one corner moving around when it's more an open task.
Yeah.
And if now one person would start to dare to go in this empty space, it would inspire the rest to also start to go more into space, to move maybe bigger because there's more space.
And I see that in our
So
class dynamic. You can see when...
Yes, and that's something also now, for example, where now we had a couple of classes, I really like to see this starting change, that everybody starts to move more freely and is not so concerned anymore to be visible and to try also things, because there are certain things where we work technically and where it's really about, okay, learning physical things and improve physically, but there are also parts where it's about very different aspects, which are then more the aspects also that are maybe important for life.
Yeah.
And where it is also about going over your insecurities and trying things out without already judging them and exploring a little bit like children who they just play.
Yeah.
They don't think about the effect or the result or how people perceive them.
Yeah. It's definitely a self-conscious aspect. And I also think maybe even, dare I say, self-centered. Because you're so focused on yourself and not focused on this giving aspect or just enjoying the space together with the people around you, because you're so hyper-focused on your own insecurities or your own visibility. And I'll take that into the next, our next class next week.
Yes, very good idea. Yes.
Well, Alina, usually I like to end on the question, what is the right feeling in all of this?
The right feeling in all of this.
And I say all of this because we've talked about a lot of different...
Yes, that's true. For me, I think it comes back to this feeling of trust. When I trust, for me, it has a feeling of calmness. Because then I don't need to question, I'm not drawn, I'm not reacting on impulses from outside. I trust, I'm calm. Yeah, I think the right feeling is calmness for me.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alina, for coming onto the podcast and sharing your wisdom and your experiences. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you also for your curiosity about my world, about my work, and to invite me.
Well, Alina, where can people find you online and your work? And if they want to connect, how would they find you?
So first of all, my website.
I'll link it in the description box as well.
Perfect. Perfect. www.alinajacobs with C .nl. And then I also have Instagram account and also Facebook. And on Facebook, I have one, it's mostly for the teaching, which is classes.alinajacobs. If there's somebody interested in the work and to experience, the best thing is like have a look at one of the channels and then contact me personally and ask, and always is coming for intake to see the starting point, because it's starting from the person.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, everything will be
in the description box.
Exactly.
All right, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. For anybody that's interested, Alina's work is currently based in Rotterdam and Amsterdam. So if you want to get in touch with Alina, I'll leave her details in the description box below. If you like this episode, share it with your friends or family, or rate it on Apple Podcasts. Thank you very much for listening, and I can't wait to feel the feels with you in the next episode.